Hello, my APUS students. Hope everybody is doing well today. These are just quick little recap videos I like to do, so we'll talk about everything we've covered in Unit 3 so far. We'll also talk about what is going to be on your quiz on Thursday to give you a better picture of that. I'll start out with some content stuff, then I'll move into thesis and context statements. Just a quick heads up, sometimes this video times out on me a little bit. The screen goes black or freezes, but you should still be able to hear my voice go through everything. So content-wise for Unit 3, we know that the American Revolution is probably the most major focus, at least at the beginning part of our class in Unit 3. So we focus mostly on the causes so far of the American Revolution. Going all the way back to Unit 1 and 2, the colonies have started developing their own unique identity, specifically protecting themselves from Native American attacks, which is why they're able to adopt their guerrilla tactics in the American Revolution itself, something we talked about in class today. Moving on from there, the colonists developed this independent mindset through the Enlightenment, this idea of rationalism and individuals being able to make their own destiny outside of kings and queens, and more individual power for the people in general. So salutary neglect had been going on this entire time period. That is a **! Exclamation point, where the colonists develop, again, more of an independent mindset and feeling like their own countries. Remember, individual states, individual colonies really think of themselves as their own sort of groups at this point. We haven't sort of collected actioned the colonies yet. But salutary neglect comes to an end during the French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War, in which Britain and their Native American allies fight the French and their Native American allies, which comes out in a British victory, kicking the French off the continent temporarily. Don't worry, Napoleon is coming back for Louisiana. Anywho, the British are now in severe amounts of debt after the French and Indian War and begin to try to collect that money back from the colonies. This is the end of salutary neglect, the end of it. A lot of us are flipping this up. Again, salutary neglect is the time period before the French and Indian War where the colonists are developing their own individual mindset. Due to British forces being on the continent to fight the French, also the imposition of taxes such as the Tea Tax, the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, most notably, taxing the people that can afford paper and can read and write, so your wealthy elites. That, in combination with the proclamation line, not allowing for the colonists to go past sort of where, Ohio would start, I guess you would say. The Appalachian Mountains, I guess, is the best way to think about it. Not being able to go past that point to involve themselves in the fur trade. The colonies' economies are being limited. Again, through taxes, being able, not be able to go and get the resources that they wish to have, and also through the system of mercantilism. Mercantilism is where the colonies, right, are dedicated to the mother country, in this case England, and are not allowed to trade with other English colonies. So I've said in class multiple times, but I really agree with the thesis that the American Revolution is really a war about limiting economics of the colonies, and of course, no taxation without representation. So limiting the economies of the colonies is definitely a major cause, as well as not having representation or a say within their government is also a major cause of the American Revolution. All right, moving forward a little bit, we get into the major Boston events and some readings and writings of the time period that are really important. Boston, Massachusetts, being the hotbed of the American Revolution, sees the Boston Massacre. Is it really a massacre? And the British soldiers firing on colonists. Were they provoked? Were they not provoked? According to John Adams, they were provoked, and the colonists were simply acting in self-defense. I'm sorry, the British were acting in self-defense. Anyways, the Boston Massacre then leads us to the Boston Tea Party, in which the Sons of Liberty are going to toss tea off of ships in Boston Harbor. That then leads to the British coming down even harder on Massachusetts, specifically with the Intolerable Acts, which limit the trade of Massachusetts, close Boston Harbor, and basically make British rule in the colonies as a whole. Going back a little bit, we also saw that the British lowered or lessened the economy of the colonies through the Navigation Acts, in which they limit smuggling. All of these things I'm talking about that seem to be the key terms are all fair for your quiz, as well as things such as the Daughters of Liberty, which are trying to help the economics of the colonies and limit British influence by making goods at home. John Dickinson publishing A Farmer, which is a fairly famous text from the time period, which outlines why the colonies should all be together. Common Sense by Thomas Paine, as you know, I love it. In what world does it make sense that an island governs a continent? Doesn't really seem to make sense. So all of these are revolutionary arguments and revolutionary texts, which are also contributing to the start of the American Revolution. So we have all of this so far as basically your major causes of the revolution as a whole. For the most part, obviously, I must have missed a thing or two, such as the Continental Congresses. The first Continental Congress is where they send the Declaration of Human Rights, where essentially they declare, their individual English citizens still. And the Second Continental Congress, where you're at least going to have everybody on the same page in these first and second Continental Congresses. The first one, obviously, everybody gets together except for Georgia. The Second Continental Congress is when they come together and sign the Olive Branch Petition. And finally, the Declaration of Independence by Thomas Jefferson, where he makes a whole bunch of accusations against King George III. So in terms of content, that's pretty much it for your little quiz here. Secondly, I'm going to ask you to make thesis and context statements. Please check your thesis and context activity. I wrote a whole bunch of feedback. A lot of us are not addressing the prompt itself in our thesis, and this is a problem. Context looks pretty good. Make sure you give 4 or 5 really strong sentences, setting up about 20 to 50 years before the time period. What leads up to it? So all that stuff I just talked about would be great context for an essay about the American Revolution. Our thesis are not addressing the prompt, and this is big. Look at the formula, right, and the rubric. You need to attack the prompt. So many of us wrote good thesis statements for our thesis and context activity, but never said if the accusation against King George III is accurate or valid. And that's what the question asked you. Assess the validity of Thomas Jefferson's statements against King George III. Is that valid or is it not valid, right? A lot of us wrote, about salutary neglect and no taxation without representation, but you never actually told me if it was valid or not. Right? So please make sure you use some of the wording in the prompt to help yourself. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Please just email me. Again, please check your thesis and context activity so you can get that good feedback. Hopefully, 1A, I should be able to get that done today, and then 2A, I will get that done tomorrow. Have a great day, and good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.